Welcome back everyone. We get to finally talk about the successor of the whole entire Sony PlayStation 3 line, the Sony PlayStation 4, and I'm not going to call it the Sony PlayStation 4, I'm just going to call it the PS4 for now. And this thing was really the last time we saw Sony release a crazy console like this. Of course, they released the PS4 Slim and the PS4 Pro, and we should be getting the PlayStation 5 later this year, which is going to be pretty insane. If you guys remember, Sony did their own little release or their pre-release of the internals of the PlayStation 5, and a ton of people were upset about that because they didn't really push out what it was going to look like or anything, and rightfully so. They never really said they were going to do that, unlike Microsoft where they actually showed what the Xbox Series X is going to bring. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about the console that really started it off, but not really, because obviously the PS3 started off before this. But the PlayStation 4 came out on November 15th, 2013, and this thing came out 7 years ago, which is so crazy. This thing, honestly, it doesn't feel like it's been 7 years since this thing came out and the Xbox One S came out. But this console, in a lot of ways, is completely still worth it. Now, we will be talking about the PS4 Slim and the PS4 Pro in other videos. I purchased those, they still haven't came in yet, and since, we're all inside, I don't think they're going to be shipped anytime soon, so I'm kind of screwed there. But for sure, at the end of the day, the PlayStation 4 still, is a very capable console. We have all those games that we're able to play with it. And I'll be honest, there's some downsides for the PS4 too, but there's mostly upsides. And if this is the only console you can buy right now, it's still a pretty decent pickup in 2020 for sure. And I think they're still selling on Amazon too, so I'll link some down in the description below if you guys want to pick them up from there and help support the channel at the same time. But you can probably pick them up for a lot cheaper on eBay for sure. Now, looking around the body of this console, you can see, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it by now. On the top, we have that basically, half glass, half clear plastic, whatever it is, and the matte texture of the top of the console. And the console still feels like a very good console too, for sure. On the front of the console, we have that power button, which is kind of interesting. It wasn't a physical one on this one, the original. The other ones actually had physical ones. This one was more of like a button that you clicked in the middle of the two little things, which was kind of weird. I think it was kind of cool, but it still kind of threw me off a little bit. Then you had those two USB ports on the front as well. And on the back, you had a couple of ports too. So you had the HDMI port, you had the Ethernet port, you had the AC adapter, and that was mostly what you had on the back end, and another USB port too. But other than that, that's really all we had, which, isn't bad at all. It's still pretty decent in my opinion for the way it looks and everything, and the fact that you had the HDMI port is really, really cool. Obviously they would have it, the PS3s had it too, but the really cool thing about the PlayStation 4 was that it wasn't like a crazy expensive console with it when it was released. It was selling for a pretty decent price at the time. I think a lot of these console manufacturers really understood, what these consoles were going for at the time, because if you think about it, most of the consoles, they don't really make money. I mean, they make money in the console itself when they sell it, but most of the time, a lot of the consoles are sold. They make their money in the games that they sell, which is a pretty decent thing in my opinion. And not only did you have the PlayStation 4, which was really, really cool, but you also had that controller, which was kind of a newer controller. And obviously this is the same controller that everyone has used since the original PlayStation 4's release. And with this controller, what's really cool about it is that, first of all, micro USB port, I really do like that over the standard other, USB port that we used on the older PS3s. I do think with this next console, they're probably going to switch to USB Type-C. That's the only thing that makes sense. But with the PS4's controller, this is a really, really nice controller, and I always go back and forth. I don't know if I like the Microsoft's more or if I liked Sony's more. And sometimes I feel like one is better than the other, but this one I feel like is pretty, similar in size, and it's pretty much the same thing in my opinion. When I feel it and when I mess with the controller, it's really, really nice. It's the familiar design that we're all pretty much, we all know how it is basically. But what's really cool is that we had that little button on the front, which was like a trackpad kind of thing. And I think maybe at the end of the day, it was more of a gimmicky feature than not. But I still think it was a kind of cool thing at the end of the day. And if Sony wanted to add that in for no extra cost, then go for it. But ultimately, it did probably cost them a little bit of money to do that. Now, the thing with controllers is that I have a theory. I think, with these gaming manufacturers, maybe they spend more money on the consoles and they make more money on the consoles. But I think in the long run, these people make more money on the controllers and the accessories than the console itself, and more so the replacement of those accessories. Like, how many PS4 controllers have you gone through? How many Xbox controllers have you gone through? You know what I mean? Like, probably a lot more. And if you combined all that money together, it would honestly probably be more than what the original console started with. I know that's for me. I always end up losing them, or I just end up breaking them or whatever, even though I don't play that many games. And there was still kind of a little issue with these controllers where sometimes the joystick would mess up. It wasn't just exclusive to the Nintendo Switch. Sometimes these controllers would mess up and glide and all that stuff and drift. That was still a common problem with this one. Not the end of the world or anything, but that is something to consider at the end of the day. Now, I talked about prices early on, but I kind of hit on them again. If you remember when this thing came out, it was about like that $400 price tag. Right now on eBay, I saw a lot of them go for less than $100 for the original one. Usually that's including a controller, but no extra games or accessories. That's pretty much bare bones. The console itself, the AC adapter and the controller, maybe an HDMI cord, but those things are really cheap, and that's pretty much all it comes with. So if you kind of keep that in mind, you can pick these things up for a super cheap price, which is very, very impressive. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to buy this console anymore, you know? Now with the PS4 Slims and the PS4 Pros, that might be a little bit of a different story, so I'll let you guys kind of do your research there. And once I get those, I'll go ahead and do those reviews like I said. But overall, these consoles have depreciated at a pretty good price tag overall, you know, and now we're in 2020, these things have gone down quite a bit. Now with all that said, this leads me into the gaming portion of this thing, and what I can tell you is the games of this thing obviously are top tier. With the original PlayStation 4, we're not able to play 4K games, which does kind of suck a little bit. It's not the end of the world or anything, but it does kind of suck that we're not able to have that capability. We were able to upscale to 4K, you know, for pictures and videos, but for gaming, it was only set at 1080p. However, with the PS4 Slim and Pros, that did change up a little bit. Another thing that kind of sucked about this was that there was no backwards compatibility, so we were not able to play any PS1, PS2, or PS3 games, which does kind of suck a little bit because if you think about it, those consoles had such a vast library of games. Like, those things were crazy. And I truly believe that if a console had backwards compatibility, that would end up making more money to the consoles themselves, like the Sony manufacturers. Like, wouldn't that make way more sense? Like, they would make way more money because people would want to buy those games. But at the same time, maybe they'll make more money because then they have to buy brand new games and not recycle the old ones, who knows. But still, I think at the end of the day, backwards compatibility would have been really cool on a console like the PlayStation 4. If you remember the original Sony PS3, that one had backwards compatibility, but this one didn't. Like, it didn't make any sense. But the games of this thing are still really great. The graphics of these games are really, really awesome as well. Things like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, all those cool little games are really, really awesome. And you have the capability of playing those games. And what's really cool is that, obviously, just like the PlayStation 3, you can download them from the network themselves through the PlayStation Store. You don't have to go to the store anymore. You don't have to go to GameStop or anything. You can download them straight from your console, so that's really nice. And games like Fortnite are all capable and being able to be downloaded on consoles like this, which is really, really cool. So the gaming, for sure, at the end of the day, this is a gaming console, and that's really, really awesome about it. Now, I have heard some PS4 mods that you can do. I don't really know too much about them, but best believe that if your console is suited for that specific mod that's available, whether it's custom firmware or whatever, I would highly recommend you guys to take advantage of that. That is something that's super, super cool. And even though I don't know too much about it for this console, I have modded several consoles back in the day, some PSPs, some DSs, 3DSs, Switches, all that stuff. And maybe a PlayStation 3 as well, I don't remember, but modding these consoles does add quite a bit of value into the consoles themselves. And really, at the end of the day, it only makes sense. So if you're in the market, I would recommend modding it. But ultimately, what I can tell you about the PlayStation 4 is that it's still completely worth it in 2020. We're talking about the original one here. The PlayStation 4 Slim and the PlayStation 4 Pros are probably better ways to go at the end of the day. But the Sony PlayStation 4, what I can tell you is that it's still top tier in my opinion. It's still one of the best consoles you can buy. Even though the PS4 Slim and the Pros are still there, this one still can do basically everything those ones can, except for a little bit, maybe less power consumption and things like that, 4K. But this one, for the, just the playing of the games and everything, is still really nice. Games look crisp. If you get a decent monitor, then you're set. You can still play online and get a PlayStation account, all that stuff. Wi-Fi still works. So this console is still completely worth it in 2020. And the best part is that these things are pretty cheap for the most part. They don't cost a lot of money. You can get them for fairly cheap on eBay, even on Amazon, like I stated. And I'll find some on Amazon and link them down straight in the description below. And I did this video last year too, and I said the same exact thing. Like, this console is not going anywhere anytime soon. And if you need to and if you want to, I would highly recommend picking one up for sure. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.